Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Pixel Pushers podcast. I'm your host, the Big Gooey, as usual. Yung Gerb can't make it today. He's got prior arrangements. I think he's actually getting a records label off the ground with some homies. So cheers to him. Today I have what could possibly be the three fiercest women in crypto. They run a fantastic Twitter Spaces bi-weekly. So I'm just going to kick it off here and pass it over to you first, Courtney. And if y'all could give me just a quick bio about yourselves, and then we'll dig in.
For sure. Well, BG, thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure to speak with you today. I guess I'll start by sharing. I got into crypto back in 2016, and I was just investing in mainly Bitcoin, like right before it crashed. And so I found my way through that whole ordeal, and then got into NFTs back in October 2021, actually, thanks to Andrea here today with us. And yeah, I've been creating ever since. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I create things that are mostly ethereal, of the divine feminine, and sort of like mystical. Also have my own collection going on. So I'm a bit all over the place when it comes towards to my creative expression. But yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell, but we could definitely get into more details.
Right on. Yeah, Andrew, you want to go up next?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, since Courtney has mentioned me, that's amazing, Courtney. Yeah, so my name is Andrea. I go by the name, my alias is Crown and Palette. It's pretty much across the board through all social media channels. I've only been in NFTs. I say only, it feels longer than that, but I've been in NFTs now since March of 2021. So it's been about a year and a bit now since I joined this world. But prior to that, I've been an artist my whole life, but I didn't really start taking it seriously until about 2-ish years ago, pretty much when the pandemic began. Also, like Courtney, I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I kind of like dipping my hands into everything, but in the context of NFTs, I've stayed primarily with 2D collage work that's tailored to the spiritual realm, astrology, anything spirituality wise, and in female empowerment. I actually met Courtney in an artist group completely outside of NFTs about a year and a bit ago now, on Facebook, out of all places. And we've been keeping in touch ever since. And it took about, I think, two or three times. And finally, she took the leap. And now here she is with myself and Emily. It's been such a ride. It's completely NFTs, crypto, Web3 has completely changed my life. I wouldn't know what it would be like. It's just been life altering. Has brought me so many opportunities, such as doing a podcast series, Twitter Space series with these two amazing ladies who we all happen to be in the same location. We're both in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, which is awesome. We all get to see each other, which is cool. But without further ado, I'll pass it along to Emily.
Thanks so much, Andrea. So yeah, a little bit about me. My name's Emily. I also go by Crypto M's on Twitter. So I actually started back in 2020 in crypto. So I'm actually a cosmetic tattoo artist. And when the pandemic hit, everything halted for my business. And that's when I started thinking about, what's going on online since in real life is completely canceled. So that's when I found crypto. I started investing a little, started hearing more and more about NFTs. And because I am a creative in real life, I thought, hey, I can totally give this a shot. I started drawing more, started painting. And then I think me and Courtney actually got into NFTs around the same time, which is really cool because I knew her prior. And lucky enough, she actually introduced me to Andrea. So it's been amazing for us all to connect and get into Web3, get a little bit deeper into NFTs. Our spaces are phenomenal. We get to connect with really amazing artists and amazing collectors, just amazing human beings that are doing great things, building in the Web3 space. And I'm really excited to continue and grow that and connect with more amazing people like yourself that host podcasts. So thank you so much, BG, for having us today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And that's actually a perfect segue into my first question. So like everybody else, I kind of just stumbled on your guys' spaces, surfing the top tab, dropping in, seeing what the conversations were. And I was just so blown away. I mean, I think first because I was raised by like a third wave queer feminist mother. So like your guys' spaces felt like I was at home in a lot of ways because just that I love how unapologetically feminine all of your work is. And I think that's so important in the space too. So I think I was just drawn to it because I just felt so comfortable in that realm. But I guess to me, like, I love how you showcase kind of people who are, that next step in their journey in the crypto thing or NFTs, but then you bring them back in to kind of recycle that energy back into the community for people who are just getting started. And I think that's such an important piece, and not just like pushing people to just buy their stuff, but the actual education and information from people who have succeeded. So I'm just kind of curious, what prompted you guys to begin that as an idea?
I'll let Courtney or because they were definitely of starting it. I only joined after the fact, which I'm grateful for, but I let them go ahead with that.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. So I think and Emily, please feel free to jump in on this. So like Emily said, Emily and I, we knew each other beforehand, and we actually didn't know we were both in the space at the time. So I think I saw something on her Instagram at some point, hinting at NFTs. And I was just so surprised that I knew somebody in my real life that was actually in Web3. So we were just so excited to be in the space, and we kind of just wanted to find another avenue to not only get our names out there, because as you know, it's so hard to make a name for yourself, I think, as a newcomer to the space. So I come from a marketing background, so for me, I was kind of thinking, and I guess you could say a bit selfishly, I was not only am I creating, but you sort of got to make a name for yourself in this space, otherwise you get lost. So Emily and I came up with the idea of why not just start holding these spaces to kind of bridge the gap between newcomers, because we were newcomers ourselves, and I think we were both just trying to learn and absorb as much information. And so we wanted to do something that would one, get our names out there, and two, also learn, and three, also build that community. So for us, we thought the spaces were a great thing for us to kind of combine that, and really and for us to learn as well. So the purpose of these spaces are really to just educate newcomers, through storytelling of people who have seen success in the space. And we started off with just artists because that's what we knew, but then eventually extended that to people who are community builders, whether that is collectors, people, building things, and artists. So that's pretty much where we were at in the beginning. And then, Andrea, like Andrea said, she's also another close friend of mine, and she's just, we can get into this, but an extreme community builder. And I was just it just makes sense to have Andrea. And then we kind of, through this whole, relationship, we've actually Andrea, we're all really close friends, and Andrea is saying, she actually moved to our city, so we're together now, which kind of makes that dynamic even better.
Oh, so cool. Well, I find too, and I'm sure you all can speak to this, and maybe the first point is I felt very much the same with this podcast, is it's just a means to cold call people and make those connections that might be kind of awkward otherwise. So I love that that spirit is alive in other people. But I think what's really interesting here is that I really I've taken so many cues from your guys' format, because I think that there's so much synergy that can be had back and forth. And to your point, Courtney, of like when you get somebody in there, I think I was in there when Irie was there a while back talking about music, and you guys cover such vast categories of NFTs. Like it's so inspiring to just drop in and hear somebody's success, but then also like I've added some of these people in my Discord or Twitter, and they're a connection for me now too. So the way that like you guys are facilitating the kind of connective tissue in the space has been such an inspiration to me.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I just want to second on what Courtney was saying. I think that definitely when we got started, we knew that if we want to build in the space, we're going to have to get on spaces, right? But I think that what really brought the idea for our style of spaces is that we really wanted to bring value, right? And not just another shill space, not just another chill space for that matter. We really wanted to do something that builds community and builds value for the listeners. We love the fact that we're able to let sometimes artists highlight their projects without having everybody just kind of come in and bombard the stage with their pitch. Rather spotlight someone, give them that opportunity to really talk about their journey, the story behind the art. And then alternatively, when we have collectors or when we have, like you said, I believe A-Rai was talking about music, we're always trying to get a different perspective of someone's journey in the space in order to give the audience some real value to take home.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we even at one point had a good friend of mine. His name is Alexander Loris. He's a crypto analyst. So he had a lot of knowledge in that area about, crypto in general, blockchain technology, where he foresees things in the future. These are the types of things that we wanted to add as well. So yeah, it's been a wild ride to just kind of like, we try to diverse it, like the three of us really try and diverse it. I think having you on our spaces, I think will add extreme value as well, another perspective. So it's just something that's important to us too, that we don't just want just artists. We want to have, again, like Emily was saying, we want to add value in ensuring that we're kind of going all over the map so that we can deliver value and content that will be helpful in all aspects of our journey.
Well, I know that sorry, I'll let you cut in there, Courtney, but I know that like the thing I took away the kind of the quickest, and maybe it was I think it was the first spaces I was in where you were actually the guest, Andrea. And Courtney, you talked so much about how the people that buy your work are the people you make connections with. You can't just dump this stuff out into the environment and hope that it sells. Like I've met so many people. So I really took that to heart when I heard that, and just incorporated that into so much of how I tried to grow as an artist is through those connections. And I'm sure you guys can speak to it too, but like the people that you meet in Web3, like these are meaningful, deep connections that like, these are homies, even if I've never even heard their voice. And to have a space like your guys's Twitter spaces where you can connect with these people, but then also take these conversations offline, you can develop projects. I think it just like goes such a long way in showing that it's like, if you want to be in Web3, it's like a 24/7 hustle all the time. But I think that there's not enough of the kind of connective tissue like you guys that are showing that it's like, look, you don't have to struggle through this like super hard shit that I did. Like, I'm just going to shortcut you to the next spot. So we're growing the space rather than just like, screw you, figure this out on your own. So like props to y'all for just like, I think really like people talk about building community and as a buzzword, I feel like sometimes, but y'all are doing it in the like most beautiful, authentic way, I think.
Thank you for that. And I know like you've been there, from the beginning. Andrea was our first guest that we spotlighted for our space. And, we really try to we're very careful in our approach and deliberate in terms of, what type of questions that we're asking. Going back to what Emily said, like we really want to create value, because I think too, there's not I'm sure people are building it right now, but there's not a space, one place for education, I would say. So it's you not only have to understand Web3, but you have to understand crypto, and then the security aspects around it. So there's like so many facets I find as well. So, it's great. And, going back to what you said about community and relationships, like, yeah, you're right. Like we've developed so many relationships just from the people that we have, spotlighted, that you never know too, like where those relationships, like you said, where they will go. Maybe it's a potential collab, maybe it's building a project one day, you don't know. But like I always say, and what I think we always preach too, is the value of building your community, even more importantly than creating, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, I think, um, like I love that point about, it almost feels like NFTs are like a layer down from crypto. It's like, if you've gone down the rabbit hole and bought a little BTC or Ethereum, like that's kind of level one. But by the time you get all the way down to NFTs, you're kind of already a Web3 native at that point. So like I think when I see artists stumble into this space, either by accident or on purpose, there's a ton of information, right? You have to know how to, decentralize file your storage or your images, how to write your metadata. Like if you're going to do it all on your own kind of thing, on top of, like what chain do you launch on? Because I think Ethereum has been the big dog, but I think that's very quickly going to be unseated. So like I just, props to you guys for I think just kind of, you really showed a template for me, and was such an inspiration even for the podcast of um get down and dirty with people you either admire or think can bring value to the communities you're building. And then also, like, I'm sure you probably found it even within the Real Talk NFTs, but once you develop that community, you really, that's when the fun starts, right? Like, and I'm very much like, kind of like, once I've got it to a point, I very much like it to just the community to take the wheel and start deciding and growing in organic ways. Obviously, you have to kind of put those guardrails up so it doesn't go haywire. But like the fact that, like, I'm sure your guys' show has inspired people to go off and start their own NFT journey, or even any aspect of Web3. Like that's really, like, I think at the heart of even the ethos of why we're here, right? And what drew me to the space is that, like, I showed up in August last year, and like people were saying good morning to each other, they were rooting for each other's success. People were genuinely wanting to help me. And like what a I always kind of tell people that are outside of crypto that this place is like, it feels very much like an inversion of social media. I'm not sure if y'all feel the same way, but like what a Facebook comment section feels like. And so when I stumble into, like, episode of Real Talk, it's just a breath of fresh air, right? Like, it's real conversations. It's not this algorithmically decided thing. And I think people are so hungry for that.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Prior to even entering NFTs, I was primarily on Instagram. And I find that the environment, the energy is so different on Instagram. I felt it to be more competitive. But I mean, in the end of the day, I still was very lucky to have met so many artists on Instagram that did take that leap into NFTs around February, March of last year. And I just want to say, like, going back to your point about, like, when we are starting, it's like, where the hell do I start, right? And I personally wish I had something like Real Talk NFTs from the beginning to, like, listen in on when I started, because it was so difficult to kind of find the answers. Kind of all of us were kind of just like, we're just going to have to figure it out. And that was scary. So I do feel that there's more and more of these spaces happening like ours. And I feel like there's going to be, it really is, I do already see a difference in bridging that gap, especially from last year when I was here.
Mhm.
But yeah, I say that entirely. I couldn't believe it when someone said to me, "Oh, the community is so different on Twitter," and I said, "Ah, get out of here! Like, no way! Like, how is it different?" And wow, yeah, like, so yeah. To piggyback on your point, that like the energy is so different on Twitter. You really do make genuine, loving connections on there, and I can vouch for that. It's been like that steadily since last year.
Yeah, it's the reason we're all here, right?
Yeah, and I want to say too, I think like with our spaces, one of the things that I personally enjoy too is like the storytelling. I think you know, storytelling is powerful, and I think a lot of people can, grab a lot of gems from the power of storytelling versus just like, going up and just saying, oh, you need to do this, this, and that. But like hearing other people's stories and like their challenges as well, I think that definitely provides value to others who are kind of coming in the space and kind of, so you don't kind of feel alone, sort of thing. So I definitely, I enjoy so much hearing so many different stories and backgrounds and how people kind of came to Web3.
Well, it's just like the thing I always try and say to people the most is like, y'all don't need a degree to get in here. You don't need a master's. Like there is no skill set that you don't like. You as a person don't have value that can kind of figure out and navigate. Like obviously you kind of have to sort that out. But like myself, I was an electrician before I became an NFT artist. So like the thing that I think about crypto and NFTs more broadly that interests me is that like this is all a protocol that's so much more equitable for working class people. And like I try and tell my artist friends all the time that I'm like, look, like I don't have to do a side hustle anymore, right? Like I don't have to work two jobs here. I can, if you obviously it takes some work to get there, but if you really throw yourself in here, like I've been able to basically just supplant my income as an electrician to be an artist. And like I know some people are like, well, I want to make millions, but like that's a win for me is to like I get to stay home and raise my son and my daughter. And like it's just like this is now a format of working and living that works for me and not the other way around. So like that's what appeals to me most. And that's why I think spaces like your guys's bring so much value is because people have, examples to look to. And it's like, well, they didn't have to go through like 4 years of, post degree or post secondary to get to where they are. They just had an idea. They met some friends along the way that helped them execute it and they're doing it and they're killing it. So I think it just really, for me, disrupts an entire mode of living that I grew up in as a kid of the 90s. It's just like, you were told to go to college, get a degree, and then it turns out like it was all bullshit, right? Like at least here. And I love that idea that like this has so many other implications for, I mean, I can live comfortably here, but I have some dear friends in developing world countries that like the income I make is life changing for them. So the fact that I have any hand in creating wealth that changes their life, but not necessarily meaningful for me is like, man, that it sounds so corny, but it warms my heart to know that like art does that for people now. And I just blows my mind that I'm even still here doing this.
No, 100%. And, it warms my heart too that I'm starting to see so many artists in this space that wouldn't necessarily be able to have, the life that we, currently have. And it's just, I'm seeing more and more even collectors kind of recognizing that too and coming together. So, actually for Web3, I always joke and I say it's like, it's my own little bubble escape from like the real world problems. Like yes, they're there and they're very important, but I also find like Web3 giving that possibility to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to do what they're doing currently in Web3. So I find it so fascinating and just the power of people coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that kind of like segues nicely into my next question is I feel like for me, my experience in this is kind of boilerplate and generic in that like I don't feel like there's a lot of friction as a dude in the space, and some of the spaces and not Twitter spaces, but like in the space more general is very still much bro culture and toxic to the core. And I think what drew me to you guys is that I like not to like put you on a pedestal, but I think like young women coming into the space having examples like y'all is such a fantastic way to start your career. Even y'all guys, man, like these ladies have so much to bring to the table. So like I'm curious, what is your perspective as being women in the space that's still feels very dominated by males. And how do you think we get to the point where like I still feel like it's a very welcoming environment, but I'm very, very mindful not to capitulate what happened in Web3 and kind of the rest of the normie space, right? Like I do believe this to be a place where barriers and equity can be achieved quicker. But I also speak from a very limited experience, so I'm very curious to hear your guys' perspective on that.
Go ahead, ladies.
Well, I mean, the data shows that like it's a very small percentage, and I think there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, it's in Web 2 that's the case. There's not enough women on the side of making investments. So when you have that in Web 2, I think that obviously extends over in Web 3. So like it's something, that we need to work towards to get better. And I think like, there's a couple of things that play out for making, Web 3 more inclusive to women. And I think, definitely going back to like education and, educating more women and empowering them and onboarding them into the space is definitely one of them. And I always go back to for males, like forming allies, like that allyship. I have seen like in this space though, so many great men that are actually, making sure that they're making space for women. So I definitely think, it's both men and women coming together in order to make this space inclusive. And so I think we just, we need more allies to kind of uplift women. That's my perspective.
I do completely agree with Courtney. I think that it's going to require all of us to come together, and like more people like yourself, BG, that are open to having, women led spaces and be excited to attend those and be part of the conversation, and host people like ourselves on your podcast. So like, again, that's great. But I do think where we're lacking a little bit is with onboarding. And again, it's not just with women. I think it's in general. There's like a lack of accessible information for someone who has no idea what crypto is or how it works. And just given the fact that, the tech industry is male dominated, for a lot of young women that have no experience in tech or investing, like Courtney said, this just seems, I feel, almost out of reach. Because there's just so much to learn. Like I know personally when I talk to my friends and family, and I try to get them into the whole crypto thing, they're just like, why is it so complicated? And I think that, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just affirming that it is so hard.
Like it's a lot of work, essentially, especially at those beginning stages, setting up a wallet, buying from an exchange, sending all that stuff over to like the common average person. They're like, why would I do this when I could simply, keep my, e-transfer or my, quick PayPal, whatever they use to come over to crypto. But I think that if we make that information more digestible and more easily accessible, then we'll have a better turnout of women in the space, because they feel like, there is a means to this end, instead of feeling so completely overwhelmed by even just that barrier of entry.
Such a fantastic
answer. I completely agree. And I'm going to go on both points that Courtney have mentioned. In terms of allies, I was lucky enough to even have a group of women artists from Instagram that all wanted to come together. We all got to learn together. I was a very lucky position where I didn't feel like I was alone, because we were all in the same position. But something that like I took to go back on, from Courtney, from being allies to just even having resources, like Emily said, I think, having our spaces is one step. And then also to take it a step further is like, how can we utilize our experience to, how can we distribute that across multiple social channels and not just on Twitter, for example, where a lot of people may not have Twitter, for example. So like using our Instagram to word of mouth, like Emily's doing with her family. Like these are all, they may take some time, but I think they all do contribute to eventually over time will empower more and more women to join the space. It's something I do is I share everything on all of my social channels, regardless if it's a win or whatever, it doesn't matter. I've even reached out to plenty of women who I feel, oh my goodness, they would do so well in this space if they really just let go of fear. I think fear is a big one. And that's something that I know, unfortunately, is, it takes time. And not everybody will want to take that leap. So if we continue doing what we're doing now, I do think that more and more women will feel empowered and inspired to do what we're doing.
Well, I know that like when I first got into crypto, it was really overwhelming, as it is for everybody. But I think that the thing more than opening the wallet or learning how to use an exchange, that was the barrier for me is like I really didn't see it at first as this like sorry, this gigantic shift in agency. And all of a sudden it's kind of moved from, your bank and Web3 takes care of it to like all of a sudden I'm in charge here and I'm calling the shots and the money's completely in my domain. Like that for me was like the revolutionary thing here. And then it kind of led down the road of art and NFTs just because I'm a much more creative person and the whole finance thing about crypto is just kind of boring to me. But I just think it has so many implications for people that like, if they're able to like reconceptualize how they can interact with data, with money, even with people, I find, because like kind of what I was saying earlier is Web3 is really like, I think authenticated a lot more experiences online for me than say Facebook or something, right? Like, I'd send messages to my family on Facebook, but it doesn't feel like, when you show up in the Discord and everybody's like, "Hey, Gooey's here!" Like it just like it feels so much more like a family. And I'm curious if maybe that was accelerated because of the pandemic. But I think now that we're on the kind of tail end of that now, and everybody's emerging, I think a little bit different. And I know I feel totally changed by that process because I came to this all in the pandemic as well. So yeah, maybe I didn't have a question there as much as just riffing on your wonderful points about I think how this can change the lives of artists. It can change the lives of working class people, and like I can't commend you guys enough for the work that you do in the space that way. So I just want to be mindful of time. But my last question here that I always kind of pitch to people is, I know we're in a really brutal bear market at the moment, but is there anybody or project or collection that you personally have your eye on that really really kind of gets you, or you're excited to be a part of?
That's an interesting question, because I just find that like currently right now, this time is kind of showing which collections I think are going to be sustainable, versus the ones that aren't. So I can say right now, like personally for me, I'm kind of taking a back seat with in terms of looking at anything I want to collect in, like in terms of PFP projects. For me personally, like in a bear market, I'm, working on building like myself and my brand. So like despite it being a bear market, that doesn't really matter for like an independent artist, I think, because like you should be building regardless. So right now, like, I'm taking it easy with like not minting a lot of pieces, but still like working on my art, working on my brand, and working on, building relationships and communities. So I would say, like, if anything, I'm starting to see a shift though, in perspective of people now investing more in terms of one art. So I find it's interesting times for sure, but I think like this current bear market has kind of, because we kind of had like this big hype up with like these recent like announcements between, you know, what was going on with Yuga Labs and Moonbirds, and then right after all of that, like everything crashed, and it's kind of like either people came into that space like on that hype, and now like the crash, so now they're kind of, you know, fear and panic. But like I think for the people that are really here and really see the power of, you know, blockchain technology to really change, you know, people's financial situations and just the world in general, I think those people are still here, and they see that vision, and I, you know, I'm one of them. So that's, you know, that's my perspective currently, is that, you know, I'm focusing on myself and as an independent artist.
Amen.
Yeah, I can second what Courtney's saying. Absolutely. It's really hard to pick a project or pick anything right now when I personally don't think that we've seen the bottom yet. I think that we're going to go lower. I think that we're going to see a lot of, especially PFP projects, disappear. So I think that what we're looking for more is, like Courtney said, who's going to last. And what I'm really mostly focused on is, you know, the one-on-one artists that are still here, when their art's not selling, when times are slow and everybody kind of seems to be doing their own thing outside of Web3 because, you know, prices are low. I'm really most bullish on who's still around and who's still grinding it out, regardless of, you know, how long it's going to take.
Builder's going to build, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. The girls couldn't have said it better, honestly. I really feel that, you know, again, it's who is gonna be in it for the long run. I think, you know, in terms of collecting and in terms of myself, I'm very selective, but I more so like to support more one-on-ones. Since I've been in this space for about a year and a bit now, I've had a somewhat good idea of those who have left, those who have stayed, who has pushed through. I really do pay attention to that. And of course, you know, I'm in a privileged position where I'm not relying on my NFT sales as my income. This is purely just a hobby and just for passion. So recognizing that, you know, I do try my best to support as many one-of-ones. I don't particularly have the same love for PFP projects. Although from World of Women standpoint, I actually was friends with Yam before World of Women came about. But that was the first PFP project I ever invested in. It's probably one of the only ones I will continue to. But at this point in time, you know, it is based on like who is in it for the long run, and that who am I connecting with? Who are the ones that are, you know, still supporting me, I'm supporting them. And, you know, so I take that into account from a collecting standpoint. But like Courtney and like Emily, just focusing on ourselves as we are artists, we're all one-to-one artists. I think this is an opportunity for us to focus on our skills and what we can, you know, things that we may have not have time for that we may have time for now, like upping our technique to trying a different medium or whatever, right? Like these are opportunities to kind of work on ourselves for sure.
Totally. Well, I want to be mindful of the time here, and we're hitting the end. So I want to thank you guys so much for showing up, sharing your story and talking about just the awesome stuff you all got going off on Real Talk NFT. So thank you so much again for showing up, and all y'all listeners, please go make sure. Maybe do you want to just quickly drop your Twitter tag so everybody knows how to get a hold of you?
Yeah, for sure. So and I failed to mention that in the beginning. So on Twitter, I go by the Curly Goddess. So it's goddess with a 0 instead of an O.
Yeah. So my Twitter is at crypto M's, and it's MZZ. So yeah, crypto MZZ.
And for the Americans, I'll say that's Z.
Thanks for that, Courtney. You're absolutely right.
What the heck is that? A new letter?
That was actually something, because I'm originally from the US and I came to Canada, and it took me a while to get used to the Z for Z's. So just throwing that out there for the non-Canadians.
And like I mentioned earlier, mine is at Crown and Palette, all lowercase, no spaces, and it's like that across the board for Twitter, Instagram, everywhere.
Awesome. And I'll link y'all in the show notes too. Just wanted to make sure the visually disabled got a crack at it. So again, thank you so much, guys, and I appreciate your time.
No,
Thank you
Vicky,
so
for
much.
having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Pixel Pushers podcast, brought to you by the Big Gooey and Yung Gerb. This is not a pyramid scheme. We have no corporate sponsors. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.